The Emperor's nursery was unlike any place in the galaxy. It was huge, bright, and full of soft, glowing lights. But the sounds that filled it were not soft. The cries of the baby dragons echoed through the hallways, shaking the walls and making even the bravest aliens cover their ears. These dragons were tiny, but their power was already clear. Sparks flew from their claws when they were upset, and their wings beat so hard that the air itself seemed to move. The Emperor had never seen anything like it. He had raised armies, controlled entire planets, and built machines that could destroy moons, but he could not control his own children. Every day, a new team of alien caretakers tried and failed. They wore heavy suits, carried strange tools, and used loud, complicated devices. But the dragons ignored everything. They screeched, clawed, and scorched anything nearby. Sometimes, a caretaker would try to touch them, and the dragons would hiss so loudly it made the windows rattle. No one could calm them. The Emperor paced his private observation deck, frowning. He was angry not because of danger to himself, but because he could not stand failure. The nursery was supposed to be a place of order. Instead, it was chaos. "Perhaps we should try another approach," one of the senior caretakers said, a sleek, green-skinned alien with 4 arms. He held a device that looked like a glowing net. "Something stronger. Something more?" He trailed off as a baby dragon leapt across the room, scattering a table of instruments. Sparks flew and a small crate burst into flames. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "I do not want stronger. I want calm. I want them safe. You will not harm them no matter what." His voice was sharp, but there was worry beneath it. The dragons were his children. He could not bear to see them hurt. The aliens all sighed. They were powerful, clever, and disciplined. They were used to controlling the galaxy. Yet here they were helpless. No one could handle the dragons. Every attempt ended in failure. In a quiet corner of the nursery, a human nurse watched. He was small compared to the aliens, with simple clothing and plain tools. They had assigned him to basic cleaning and feeding tasks. No one thought he could do anything important. The other caretakers often laughed at him. "The human cannot even lift a crate," they said. "What can he do with dragons?" The human did not answer. He did not speak much. Instead, he watched carefully. He noticed the dragons flapping their wings and curling their tails. He saw the way they moved, how their eyes darted, how they made sounds. Most caretakers focused on controlling them with tools. The human focused on understanding them. He realized the dragons were scared and excited, not angry. They wanted attention and comfort, not punishment. The next day, the human nurse approached the Emperor. "May I try something?" he asked quietly. His voice was soft, almost polite. The Emperor looked at him, surprised. "Try what?" he asked. "I want to care for them, not control them. I think I can calm them," the human said. The Emperor frowned. He had seen many failures. You are human. You are small. You have no power. What makes you think you can succeed?" The human did not answer with words. He simply smiled and looked at the dragons. He reached for a small cloth, soft and warm. "I will not use machines or force," he said. "I will just try to be gentle." The Emperor thought for a moment, then nodded. "You may try. But if you fail," he left the warning hanging in the air. Everyone in the nursery turned to watch the human. They were curious and skeptical. No human had ever tried anything important here. Most aliens believed humans were weak. The human walked into the nursery slowly. The dragons screeched, hopped, and flapped their wings ready to strike. He did not run. He did not shout. He knelt down, keeping his hands open and calm. He moved slowly, letting them see him. At first, the dragons hissed and bared their tiny teeth. One swiped at him, but he only ducked slightly and stayed calm. He began to hum softly, a low, steady sound. It was not loud or scary. The dragons stopped for a moment, confused. They had never heard anything like it. He spoke gently, almost whispering, and reached out with the cloth. Slowly, carefully, he wrapped one tiny dragon in it. The dragon did not fight. It even stopped moving for a second, as if listening. Other caretakers gasped. This was impossible. No one had ever touched the dragons without chaos. Yet the human did it easily. He smiled, not with pride, but with understanding. He had found the secret. The dragons did not need control. They needed care. The Emperor watched from above. His eyes widened. He had underestimated humans, as he often did. They were small, fragile, and seemingly weak, but they had something the strongest aliens did not: patience, empathy, and the ability to connect. The nursery was still noisy. The dragons were not fully calm yet. But for the first time there was a spark of hope. The human nurse had tried something new, and the dragons had responded. He was not just surviving among them, he was reaching them. And for the Emperor, that simple truth was more powerful than any weapon in the galaxy. The next morning, the human nurse returned to the nursery before anyone else. The dragons were already awake, stretching their wings and squeaking loudly. Their eyes glowed faintly in the soft light of the room, and their tails whipped across the floor. The aliens had tried everything the day before, but the dragons were still wild, still impossible to calm. The human walked slowly into the room, carrying only a few small cloth wraps and a tiny bowl of warm water. He did not wear armor or hold any strange devices. The other caretakers whispered behind his back. "He will fail again," one said. "It is impossible for a human to handle them." The human ignored them. He had learned something the aliens had not. He had seen that the dragons were sensitive, curious, and scared. They were not meant to be controlled with force or machines. They needed patience, kindness, and understanding. He knelt in the center of the nursery and took a deep breath. One dragon, the smallest, crawled toward him, wings flapping. The human held out his hand slowly. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe." The dragon stopped, tilting its head as if listening. Another dragon charged at him, claws extended. Most humans would have jumped back, but he did not. He kept his hands open and his voice calm. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said. The dragon froze, confused by his gentle words. Slowly it lowered its claws. The human began humming again. A low, steady hum, soft but continuous. The dragons tilted their heads at the sound. They had never heard anything like it. It was not a machine or a weapon, but something warm and familiar. One dragon approached him carefully, sniffing the air. The human smiled and wrapped it gently in a cloth. The dragon stopped struggling and even let out a small, soft sound. The other dragons watched. Some crouched and hissed, but none attacked. They were curious now. Slowly, one by one, they began to approach him. He spoke to each of them in the same calm voice, keeping his movements slow and careful. He did not force them but offered comfort. The aliens around the room could not believe what they were seeing. Years of training and technology had failed, yet this human, small and weak by their standards, was succeeding. They whispered among themselves. "How is this possible? He is not using machines. He is just talking to them?" The Emperor, watching from his observation deck, leaned forward. His eyes widened. He had always known humans were clever, but he had underestimated them. This human, with no special powers or technology, was reaching dragons that even the most skilled aliens could not control. Hours passed. The human stayed with the dragons, keeping calm and gentle. He offered them warmth, soft touches, and quiet words. Slowly the nursery became calmer. The dragons still flapped and squeaked at times, but the chaos from before was gone. For the first time the Emperor saw the nursery as it could be, quiet, orderly, and safe. The human noticed patterns in their behavior. Some dragons responded to voice, others to touch, and one even seemed to enjoy the humming. He adjusted his approach for each dragon. He was not trying to control them. He was learning them, understanding them, and giving them what they needed. By evening, the nursery was almost peaceful. The dragons were resting in the cloth wraps, some curled around the human, some lying close by. The other caretakers stared in awe. They had spent weeks trying to impose control, but the human had shown them that connection was stronger than force. The Emperor descended to the nursery. He walked slowly, careful not to disturb the dragons. He stopped a few steps away and studied the scene. The human was kneeling in the middle of the room, humming softly, and the dragons were calm around him. The Emperor's lips curved slightly. This was more than care, it was brilliance. One dragon, the largest, lifted its head and looked directly at the Emperor. Then it turned and pressed against the human's shoulder. It chose him without hesitation. The Emperor felt a shock of realization. These creatures, feared by all, trusted a human more than any alien. The human looked up and smiled at the Emperor. "They are not dangerous," he said simply. "They just need someone to understand them." The Emperor nodded slowly. He had learned something important today. Strength was not always in power or weapons. Sometimes, it was in patience, kindness, and the ability to connect. Humans, he realized, had a kind of strength that others often overlooked. As the night fell, the nursery was quiet. The dragons rested, the humans watched over them, and even the aliens who had mocked him before felt a small twinge of respect. The human nurse did not boast. He simply continued his care, humming softly as the dragons slept. And for the first time in weeks, the Emperor felt a small smile of relief. Perhaps these dragons, the most impossible creatures in the galaxy, were not untamable after all. Perhaps, with the right touch, they could be nurtured into greatness. The Emperor turned and left the room quietly, leaving the human with the dragons. He knew that the galaxy had changed today not because of machines or weapons, but because of a single human who refused to fear the impossible. The next morning, the nursery was quieter than it had ever been. The dragons still moved and squeaked, but their energy no longer felt wild or threatening. The human nurse entered first, carrying nothing but a few cloth wraps and a small bowl of warm water. He moved slowly, carefully, letting the dragons see him before he reached for them. The smallest dragon ran forward and nuzzled his hand. The human smiled. "Good morning," he whispered softly. "You slept well?" The dragon chirped, a tiny sound that seemed like a laugh. Others watched from a distance, their eyes glowing faintly. The human knelt in the middle of the nursery. He did not try to force the dragons to come closer. Instead, he stayed still and let them decide. He had learned that each dragon had its own personality. Some were curious, some cautious, and one seemed stubborn. They responded not to strength but to care. He picked up a dragon that had been nervous the day before. It trembled slightly in his hands. He hummed softly a low steady tune and rocked it gently. Slowly the dragon relaxed. Its wings stopped flapping and its tail lay still. The other dragons tilted their heads. They had never seen anything like this. The human's voice was calm and warm, unlike any sound they had ever heard. The largest dragon stepped forward, wings beating slowly. It looked at the human with sharp, intelligent eyes. It was cautious but not hostile. The human held out his hand, palm up, and smiled. "It's okay," he said. "You don't have to be afraid." The dragon sniffed the air, then stepped closer. It pressed its head against the human's shoulder, a gesture of trust. The other caretakers watched in silence. They could not understand what was happening. They had all tried machines, tools, and complicated devices. They had tried force and discipline. Nothing had worked. Yet here was a human, small and weak by their standards, calming dragons that no one else could touch. The human noticed a pattern. Some dragons responded to touch, some to voice, and some to the gentle rhythm of humming. He adjusted his care for each one. He wrapped one in a soft cloth, held another close, and rocked the third while humming. Slowly, the nursery filled with calm energy. The dragons were not asleep, but they were no longer panicked or wild. The Emperor watched from the observation deck, silent but alert. He had seen many things in his life: armies, wars, planets conquered, but he had never seen this. Strength and power were useless here. Only understanding worked. He realized humans had a quality the strongest aliens often lacked: the ability to connect without force. Hours passed. The human continued his care, moving among the dragons with quiet patience. One dragon, still small and nervous, began to follow him wherever he went. Another curled around his legs, content to rest. The largest dragon lay near him, watching carefully, but relaxed enough to let him approach. The other caretakers began to whisper. "How is this possible?" one asked. "He is not using technology, not even commands. He is just caring for them." "Yes," another replied. "And the dragons are responding. They trust him." The human did not pay attention to the whispers. He focused on the dragons. He noticed that when he stayed calm, they stayed calm. When he moved gently, they moved gently. He had discovered something important. These dragons did not need control. They needed connection. As the day went on, the nursery became almost peaceful. The dragons still chirped and flapped occasionally, but it was quiet, gentle movement, not chaos. The human nurse moved among them, humming softly, wrapping them, and speaking gentle words. He had learned to read their moods, to adjust his approach for each one. The Emperor descended quietly into the nursery. He wanted to see the human at work up close. He watched as the nurse approached the dragons, not with fear, not with force, but with care. One dragon, the largest, nudged the human's shoulder. The human smiled and patted it gently. Another dragon, the smallest, curled in his arms. The Emperor realized he had never seen anything like this. The human looked up and met the Emperor's gaze. "They are not dangerous," he said softly. "They are just children. They need someone to understand them, not control them." The Emperor nodded slowly. He understood now. Strength alone was not enough. Power alone could not command loyalty or trust. The human had shown something the aliens could not: true care, patience, and understanding. As evening fell, the nursery was calm. The dragons rested, close to the human nurse. The aliens looked on in awe. They had learned an important lesson: control could not replace care. The human sat quietly among the dragons, humming softly. They curled around him, each in their own way, showing trust and affection. The Emperor watched from the door, a faint smile on his face. For the first time he felt hope. Perhaps these dragons, so wild and impossible, could be guided not by force, but by patience and understanding. The human had done something only humans could do. He had seen through the dragons' wildness to their needs. And in doing so he had earned their trust, respect, and loyalty. The Emperor realized that this small human, weak by any standard of strength, had shown him something far greater than power. He had shown him a truth the galaxy often forgot. Connection and care were stronger than fear, stronger than technology, and stronger than any weapon. And in the quiet nursery the dragons slept peacefully, safe in the hands of the human who did not fear them, but understood them. The next day the Emperor decided it was time to test the human nurse. He had seen enough to know the man was extraordinary, but he wanted proof that the dragon's calm was real and not just luck. He called the head caretakers together. "Shut down the support systems," the Emperor ordered. "No instruments, no machines, no aids. Let us see if the dragons remain under control." The aliens hesitated. They knew this was risky. The dragons could react unpredictably. Sparks could fly, equipment could be damaged. But the Emperor's word was final. Slowly the caretakers deactivated the machines, leaving the nursery quiet except for the dragons themselves. The human nurse entered the room as usual, carrying only his cloth wraps. The dragons stirred immediately. They were used to the hum of the machines, the soft glow of the instruments. Without them the room felt different, empty, strange. The dragons flapped and squeaked nervously. One climbed the wall, tail lashing. Another hissed, wings extended. The other caretakers whispered among themselves. "This will fail," one said. "Without support, the dragons will go wild." The human did not answer. He knelt in the center of the nursery, breathing slowly, keeping his hands open. He did not reach for the dragons immediately. Instead he stayed calm, letting them see that he was steady, unafraid, and present. A small dragon ran toward him, trembling. He held out his hand and spoke softly. "It's okay. You're safe here. I won't hurt you." The dragon paused, then pressed against his shoulder. Another followed, circling him carefully, wings flapping slowly but controlled. The largest dragon, cautious as always, stepped forward and stared at him. The human held his gaze, calm and unshakable. "You don't need to be afraid," he whispered. Slowly the dragon lowered its wings and walked closer, brushing its head against the human's arm. The aliens gasped. They had never seen dragons behave this way without technology or control devices. The human was doing something impossible. He was keeping them calm with nothing but patience and presence. The Emperor observed silently. He had never expected to see this. Strength and force could not achieve what a single human had accomplished. Care, understanding, and connection, that was the key. The dragons continued to test him. One jumped toward a high shelf, another squeaked angrily at a fellow dragon, and the third circled the room nervously. The human remained steady. He adjusted his approach for each one, using gentle words, soft humming, and calm movements. Slowly each dragon responded. One by one they settled near him. Hours passed. The room that had been wild and chaotic the day before was now calm. The dragons lay close to the human, resting or observing quietly. The Emperor realized the truth. This human had earned their trust, not through dominance or power, but through understanding and patience. The head caretakers who had doubted him now watched in awe. They whispered among themselves. "He is doing it again without tools, without force," another nodded. "He is connecting with them in a way we cannot." The dragons listened to him. The human noticed a pattern. Each dragon responded differently. Some liked to be held, others preferred gentle touches, and one responded to humming. He adjusted naturally, intuitively, to their needs. They were not machines to be controlled, they were creatures to be understood. The Emperor stepped forward, finally speaking. "You have passed my test," he said quietly, almost to himself. The human looked up but did not smile with pride. He simply continued caring for the dragons, humming softly. The largest dragon nudged the human's shoulder, and he patted it gently. Another climbed onto his lap, curling its tail around him. The Emperor watched, feeling a mix of respect and wonder. He had underestimated humans as he often did. Their strength was not in weapons, not in machines, not in size. It was in connection, in understanding, in patience. The human looked at the Emperor. "They are not dangerous," he said softly. "They just need someone to be with them, to understand them. That is all." The Emperor nodded. He understood now. Power could command obedience, but it could not earn trust or loyalty. Only care, patience, and understanding could do that. As the day ended, the nursery was quiet and calm. The dragons rested peacefully, some curled around the human, some lying close by. The aliens had learned a lesson they would not forget. The strongest creatures could be tamed, not by force but by connection. The human remained kneeling in the middle of the room, humming softly. The dragons shifted slightly but remained close. The Emperor watched from the doorway, a faint smile on his face. He realized something important. Humans had a strength that even the most powerful aliens often lacked. They could reach hearts and minds in ways no technology could. And for the first time, the Emperor felt certain of something. The dragons were not untamable. With the right touch, the right care, and the right understanding, even the wildest creatures could be guided toward calm and trust. The human had done the impossible. And the Emperor knew that this small, quiet human had changed the nursery, and perhaps the galaxy, forever. The morning sun barely touched the nursery, but the human nurse was already inside. The dragons stirred quietly, their tiny wings stretching, their eyes blinking slowly. For the first time the nursery felt calm and safe. The humans and aliens who had been watching from the observation deck held their breath. Today would be the final test. The Emperor entered silently. He wanted to see the result of the humans' care. "Show me," he said simply. "Let us see if their calm lasts without me ordering it." The human smiled gently but did not speak. He moved slowly through the nursery, letting the dragons see him before he approached. One by one they responded, staying near him, following his movements and even leaning against him for comfort. The Emperor watched closely. He had expected the dragons to become restless at some point, to test the human one last time. But they did not. They trusted him completely. Suddenly one of the dragons, the smallest, ran toward the human nurse, wings flapping quickly. It squeaked loudly as if calling for help. The other caretakers gasped. This could start chaos. The human knelt calmly. He extended his hand and spoke softly. "It's okay. I am here. You are safe." The dragon hesitated for a moment, then pressed against his chest. Its wings stopped flapping, its tail curled around his arm. The others watched and began to respond in the same way. Slowly, the nursery filled with a sense of peace. The dragons were not asleep, but they were calm, attentive, and obedient, not out of fear but out of trust. The Emperor's eyes widened. He realized he had underestimated humans again. He had believed strength came from power, weapons, and control. Yet here was a human, small and fragile by appearance, who had earned the loyalty of the most impossible creatures in the galaxy. The human noticed the dragon's patterns. Each one had its favorite way to feel safe. Some liked gentle touches, others preferred humming, and one liked to be wrapped in the cloth. He adjusted naturally, intuitively for each dragon. No machines, no force, just care and attention. "Unbelievable," one of the aliens whispered. "He has done what no one else could. Without tools, without technology, without fear, he has earned their trust." The Emperor stepped closer. He had been silent for a long time, watching this unfold. "You have done more than calm them," he said. "You have shown me the strength of humanity. Strength is not only in power but in patience, in care, in understanding." The human looked at him and smiled softly. "They are not dangerous," he said. "They just needed someone who would listen to them, understand them, and be with them. That is all." The largest dragon nudged the human's shoulder and then curled its wings around him protectively. The other dragons pressed close as well. The human did not try to hold them all, but he let them choose to stay near him. It was a simple thing, but it meant everything. The Emperor nodded slowly. He could see it clearly now. Humans could reach creatures in ways that technology and strength never could. They could connect, inspire trust, and lead without force. This small human had achieved what no one else could, simply by being patient, kind, and brave. The Emperor made an announcement that echoed through the station. "From this day forward, human nurses will be the guardians of the royal dragons. They will not use machines or force. They will guide these creatures through care and understanding. And the one who has done this will be their first guardian." The other caretakers who had doubted him before watched in awe. Some bowed their heads in respect. The aliens realized they had learned an important lesson. Control does not equal loyalty. Trust, patience, and understanding are far stronger. The human continued his work, humming softly as he wrapped the dragons in cloths or held them gently. One by one, the dragons leaned closer to him, showing their affection. Even the largest, most stubborn dragon rested its head on his shoulder. The Emperor stepped back and watched quietly. He understood now that humans were special. They could not be measured only by strength or size. Their greatest power was in their ability to connect, to care, and to inspire loyalty without fear. As the sun set, the nursery was calm and peaceful. The dragons rested, each close to the human who had earned their trust. The human sat quietly humming, watching over them. The other caretakers had learned a lesson that day they would never forget. The Emperor smiled faintly. "Perhaps the galaxy has underestimated humanity," he said softly. "Perhaps they have the kind of strength we have never seen." And in that quiet, glowing nursery, the human nurse had done something brilliant. He had taken the most impossible creatures in the universe, the Emperor's wild and untamable baby dragons, and made them calm, safe and loyal, without force, without fear and without weapons. Only through understanding, patience and care. For the Emperor and for the galaxy, it was a moment that would be remembered forever. The human had proven that true strength was not in power but in the heart.